Hey everybody, Amy McDonald here. Welcome back to the Abundant Yoga Teacher Podcast special series all about considering what you're doing in your business and is it the right thing? Could it be maybe a little higher vibration? Is it time to make a change? We're in a really contemplative, reflective period, and I'm curious to know how you can make the very most of this opportunity and come out the other side of it feeling even more grounded and present and in love with what it is that you're doing. So I am so delighted to welcome my guest for the moment. Crystal's joining me here from Illinois, which is just such a fun word to say. I've got to, what states, it's a good one. Crystal, tell us about you, what you do, where we can find you. Give us the intro to you.
Sure. Well, hi, my name is Crystal Gray. I'm an ERYT 500 for anybody who cares about that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I've been teaching since for about 15 years in Chicago. And then my husband and I moved an hour and a half south of Chicago to begin an organic vegetable farm. So now I live out in the middle of nowhere, but this is also where I grew up. So I'm relatively familiar with living out in the middle of nowhere. And in times like this, it's actually really nice to live out in the middle of nowhere because we can go for walks and we've got our property. We've got greenhouses with hundreds of pounds of fresh lettuce. And so yeah, it's nice. And the reason why I have an online business, and the reason why I have that is because I didn't have a huge market here where I live. And I did have a studio for a while. I liked it, but it just wasn't me. And I couldn't have as big of a voice as I wanted to have. And so I really wanted to focus too on working with the type of people that I really wanted to work with. Yes. And so that's why I moved my business online with, but we can get into that, but that's me, Michelle. Oh, and I'm a mom and a wife. My daughter's 10 and her name's Aya.
Tell us about where we can track you down. So if people are listening to this, we also want them to be stalking you, following you, subscribing, all of the things. What's your Insta?
It is Crystal Gray Yoga. That's my main one. I've also got a Yoga Goddess Academy, but Crystal Gray Yoga is where I post a lot more. So.
And what about your website, lovely?
Yeah, that's well, let's actually just direct into my Facebook group, which is cool. Yoga Goddess Collective. Yeah, that's my main thing right now, Yoga Goddess Collective.
And can we just ask to join your group? Is it open for folks?
Yes, you can. Bring it on.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks already. Before we got going and in the email, a little bit of emailing that you and I have been doing, one of the threads that's come through was this idea about using this sort of concealment phase, if you like, if we use sort of a Nataraj symbol metaphor, or the fallow period, to actually think about, what am I doing? You know, I hear from most of my clients are freelancers. Some work for studios, but for the most part, they rent space. They teach in different venues. And there's a lot of churn involved in that. You just get home, prepare something for the kids to eat, then get back in the car and take my stripy bags of props to the church hall and teach the thing. And it's just going and going and go. And so the idea of actually having a moment to stop and contemplate, is this what I'm meant for? Is this my actual dharma, or am I just doing it because I've always done it? I think it's a really powerful time to be thinking about those sorts of things. So I'm delighted to have this conversation with you about checking in for folks to think about, are we actually doing what lights us up, or are we just going through the motions? And I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, and if you're finding that this is a period for work like that also.
Sure. Well, you bring up a couple different points. So one of the things you're mentioning is, I do this and then I'm going to go and then I'm going to run and do this and then I've got to go all the way across town and I've got to go do this. And I think that we just kind of get caught in the trap of, because there's a whole bunch of other people saying, well, that's just what you do when you're a yoga teacher. Yes. You're going to make just a little bit amount of money with each yoga class. So then you're going to go to all these different places and you're just going to teach yoga basically to anybody who will pay you and ask you for it. And so then that leads me into the second point, which is niching down, right? And finding your niche, which goes into the other point of doing what lights you up.
Yes.
And for me, what I tell my yoga students is, it is important to have, it's important to have a niche, because yes, I'm not a Debbie Downer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a super positive person, but the fact is there's a lot of 200-hour teachers out there.
Sure.
And so I think it's really important to have a niche, to say, hey, this is exactly who I help, because not only are you going to attract the right clients, but then you can network more with your fellow teachers instead of trying to climb your way up and, my class, my students.
You're stealing my students.
Exactly.
Oh God,
Exactly.
yes.
Because I love referring. Like if I have somebody that wants specific business in yoga, well, then I'll say, you know what, go to my friend Amy McDonald. She's going to be able to help you out better than I could in this area. And I'll just stick to what I'm really good at. And I think that that's really important. And how to find your niche, one of the things that you can do is, and you've probably talked about this a lot, but just give you my perspective on it, is to look to where you've been in your life. Where was a time in your life that you felt lost or like a piece of shit and you needed a friend, right? Just to talk to and somebody to help kind of pull you out a little bit of inspiration, and go back to that person and use the tools that you have now to help that person.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I think that we, thank you. I think that we get stuck too much in being like, well, I don't have it all figured out. You know, maybe you want to help single moms with anxiety. I don't know. I'm really trying to get narrowed down, but you feel like you still sometimes have panic attacks. So how could you teach them? Well, you don't have to have it all figured out. You could say, you know what, this is what I do whenever I'm in that situation, or now I can feel it coming on. And so I do this, you know, everybody's sick to seeing perfect yoga teachers and perfect people on social media now, right? I was just telling you how I just fell out of my handstand in my video, and I was like, I'm just going to keep it up and let them see it.
I have a polarizing relationship with this concept of niche. And only yesterday I had 2 different coaching calls with folks that I haven't worked with before. And what they wanted to get from their time with me was clarifying their niche. And that when a yoga teacher asks me that, it just riles me up, because my sense of it is, if you teach what you love and if you do nothing but be your authentic self, your niche coalesces around you, because that's what you're attracting in. But this thing of I need to sort of compute it, and I need to overanalyze it, and I can't get going until I've hammered it down, brings people to a paralysis point. Like they can't actually progress because they're so fixated on getting something perfect. And what I love so much about what you just said is that, and I think it's true, that for most of us, the people that we really feel called to serve are versions of ourselves just a little while ago. We're just a little further down the road. Very powerful.
Yeah. And I think too, Amy, whenever you get stuck in that place of, oh, I've got to find, it's like you're swimming upstream, right? And then you make your decisions based on things like, well, what's going to make the most money, and what's going to do this, and what are the trending things right now? And even though that seems like it would be the right way to go about it, it's not, because the world needs you, and to show up how you're going to show up for the people that need you. And to me, it also makes all of the really shitty experiences in my life, it makes me feel a lot better, because I wouldn't be able to help the people that I can help now if I wouldn't have ever been there, you know. And they know, like, wow, she can do it, you know, then I can do it too. So so actually is what you're saying, Crystal, that it's a good thing that when I started out as a yoga teacher, I'd sit there until 10 past the hour, and when no one had actually shown up for my class, I would feel relieved and pack up my shit. I know. Isn't that a funny feeling? I would feel like that sometimes too. Like, well, it's either like you want like 20 people to be there, or
no.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Not like
there's
one.
That relief.
Not when you're...
Yeah. There's always that relief, but I know it's like you shouldn't be feeling that, you know.
When that guy stops coming, oh thank God, because I didn't actually have the courage to say, this is not the right class for you. Like,
ooh, man, that's one of the hardest lessons. Been there.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah. Okay. So this takes courage, I'm imagining, especially if there's any lingering lack thinking or a poverty consciousness for people to
Mhm.
step away from the bread and butter. I've always taught that chair yoga class at the community center. And I know that that means every week there's $50 coming into my, but I don't
Right.
like it.
Right.
You know, it takes courage to step away from things that might be consistent but not necessarily rewarding. What would you say to somebody who's frightened about letting go of something that's been stable, even though it
Well,
hasn't
to
been their truth?
me, as you know, I've told you I am pretty woo woo, but I definitely believe that if you don't make any space for the things that you actually want to come into your
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
they have no space to come
that's
into your
good.
life.
Yeah,
So you have to, it's kind of like showing God or the universe or just yourself, you're proving to yourself that you want it and you trust and you have faith. And that's the hardest thing for me and most people to have is faith. We can say we have it, but when it comes down to the brass tacks,
yeah,
can we really let go of that? And I just wanted to also touch on another point that you said about, eventually your niche will kind of present itself. And that
yeah.
is true because if I would have, and it can change over time too, but if I would have looked 10 years ago, say, and been like, oh yeah, in 10 years, I'm going to be leading yoga teacher trainings and all this, I would have been like, yeah, right. But over time, people loved my alignment tutorials. Wow, you make it like I'm able to explain it in a way that really makes sense and like lands for people, which a lot of people just don't have that skill. And I do have it and I'm proud to say it now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think eventually you just have to kind of listen, like do what you love to do, but also listen to what people are telling you. And that can help narrow it down as well. But you don't just want to listen to what everybody's telling you and just go with that. It's got to be a combination of the two things.
I love that. And sort of being like looking for crumbs, following trails. I think
Yeah.
I never would have foreseen this as my career, let alone something that I get up every morning and think, yes, another day doing what I love.
Yeah,
But there were
totally.
crumbs along the way of,
Hmm.
it wasn't that I got the full picture. No one ever said to me, this is here's the list and exactly, here's your business plan and go do. But if you're
Right.
mindful of, this felt better than that other thing, or
Exactly.
I'm going to pursue that.
Listening to your intuition. It's
Yes,
so important. It's so important. And that takes faith as well.
it does. It does. So something that I know you support people with is really honing the craft. So say, for example, I imagine there's folks watching or listening who are thinking, okay, maybe I need to stop doing that thing. Maybe myofascial release, I did the training, I thought it would make money. My classes are okay, but I'm bored. I want to do like goddess workshops.
Mm-hmm.
So how, in making those transitions, I imagine that there is also more of that shivering coded piece of ensuring that you're actually very good at the thing that you want to specialize in. What would you
Mm-hmm.
say for people who realize, actually, I want to do more of this and less of that? I know I need to hone those skills.
Yeah, I think it's just all about starting and not waiting until you are an expert in it or until you think you're an expert in it.
Yes.
Because other people they're going to be like, well, she knows, she knows about this stuff. And even if not, it's not being like, and this is what I always tell my students, you're not like, hey guys, today I'm going to teach you the most earth-shattering, life-changing class that's ever happened. Wow. It's like, no. What you're doing is you're going to teach them a class that's going to make them feel better than when they walked in. And that's all that you need to do. And if you keep telling yourself that's going to put your ego in check, and it's going to help you to lead your class from a place of love than a place of ego. Like, oh my God, I've got to put the most craziest sequence together and I've got to do this. And then how am I going to get an arm balance? And then not that like doing those like challenging poses is bad, but sometimes you can tell when a class is like that. And whenever it doesn't flow and it's coming from a different place,
Yes. Yes. Totally. I was talking to a emerging yoga teacher yesterday, and she wants to specialize in private yoga, and she was concerned that she wasn't good enough yet. She'd only been teaching for 18 months and maybe she wasn't good enough yet to teach private yoga. And I said to her, all private yoga is a class with just one student. It's not yoga therapy. It's not spiritual guidance. It's not well-being mentorship. It's just a yoga class with one person in it. If you can teach a class, you can teach a private, like people can get so heady with, and if I don't have, I have this phrase, like qualifying yourself confident. I think some yoga teachers are addicted to, I'll just do another prenatal 50 hours, and I'll just do another
Totally.
50-hour nidra thing
Yeah.
until I'm
Right.
finally ready.
You have to just start taking those steps. And I was talking to somebody the other day, one of my students or somebody, and I was like, my biggest piece of advice that I can give people is just to keep going. Like, if this is your passion, I started my Facebook group in 2016. So it's been a while. Things do not happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be my biggest year yet. I mean, which is good because hopefully this is, and then my next one is, but it takes a while. It takes a little while to get momentum, but you just have to keep going. And there really is no such thing as failure. If something didn't work, pick yourself up and do the next thing. And if you don't like something, then don't do it. I don't do it. It might make me look wishy-washy, but if I don't feel like I'm delivering well enough, or if it's like pulling teeth, like again, swimming upstream, I'm not going to do it because it's just not right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good. And in saying that, there is a place for ongoing professional development, but I suspect that, well, I'm curious to know what you think, Crystal. What's the difference between that hungry ghost, I need more to be good enough pursuit of professional development or ongoing training versus the professional development, ongoing training that's actually nourishing and supportive of your path? How do you know which is which?
I would say to do some soul searching first and to find out who you do really want to teach. Is there a past version of yourself that you'd really love to teach? And figure out what they need and where do you want to get them? Where are they at now and where do you want to help them get? And what kinds of things do you think would help them to get there? What helped you?
Yeah.
And instead of just being like, oh yeah, okay, that's a really hot thing, I'm going to take that training and I'm going to take that training. Do some things, make yourself do things that you're super scared of. Do a few of those things, push yourself out of your comfort zone. Then I would give you permission to maybe, do another training or something. But yes, there's always, well, I'm going to do that and then I'll be ready. No, you're not. I'm going to do that. Then you're ready. No, I'm not. You have to be comfortable with, if you're not comfortable doing stuff now, you're never going to be.
I like it.
Your students aren't going to be like, well, I don't know. How many certifications do you have in that?
Has anyone ever asked you to see your certificate? No one has ever said to me, well, if you registered with yoga, show me your certificates.
No. And that's, so Yoga Alliance is a whole nother story. They're all right, but I teach online, so it's a tricky situation for me. And so.
Yeah, you and I, that's a glass of red and a great conversation. And I was talking to a yoga teacher, one of my clients the other day, and she's been teaching for a long time and she's got an incredible lineage behind her, and she's, I can tell just from her energy that she is the real deal. And she is having this crisis of confidence. Who is she to teaches in a small town? Who is she to actually play a bigger game? And
I live out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And me too. And I said to her, you need to go take other people's classes so you actually have a point of comparison, not to make someone else be less than or bad, but to understand how you're different and how you're special and what other people see in you, because you can use other teachers as a mirror to get that.
Yeah. I think and you can be like, oh, I am really good at this. Yes. So then use that in your marketing. Yes. Be like, hey, these are my specialties. This is what I'm really good in. I'm not like super great at anatomy, and I'll be the first one to admit it. Do I know all the muscles in the body? No. Am I going to talk about all the muscles in a class? No, but I'm very good at what I call intuitive anatomy and helping. I just know how poses should look and I know how they should feel. So I can tell people how to exactly get into that pose without having to even say the body part. Because honestly, people don't, unless they like are an anatomy buff or maybe they're a massage therapist or things like that, they don't know a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And it can be very overwhelming for students, in my opinion, if you just say all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Retract and depress your scapula. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So folks, let's just do some recapping at this point. So I guess what Crystal and I are suggesting for everybody is, could now be a time where you start to consider, have I veered off my own course? Am I doing things that maybe aren't meant for me? And what would it look like to actually come back into a place that feels more fulfilling? And no, I think, again, I want to know what you think, Crystal, but I think that when you're doing the stuff that feels really fulfilling, one, that's where you make the money, and two, that's where you could just keep doing it for as long as you cared to. There's
Totally.
no burnout or overwhelm when you're
No.
on purpose.
Yeah.
What do
Well,
you keep?
100%. I lead the online yoga teacher trainings, and the 3 hours go, I honestly, I also lead them in person, and we'll have weekends where we're there for 2 days straight, and I'll lead a 3 hour yoga teacher training online, and there's so much information, and I'm giving them so much, and I'm just like, how did I ever teach like a full weekend whenever in 3 hours maybe because I feel like I need to give them so much more in the 3 hour time. So, but it's kind of like, bah. But that being said, like I could do it all day, but I just start to see them like, so for those of you that are just listening, I'm looking like deer in headlights, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to stop now. That's enough knowledge for today. But yeah, I just love it. And it fills me up. I mean, whenever I'm done with those, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, that was, because it's a lot of space that you're holding for
Yes.
people. And it is different online
Yes.
because you have to keep that energy up. But that's a skill that it does just take a little bit of time. I was listening to one of your episodes today, and you were talking about how one of your students was saying, I don't really, I want to keep the energy up, and it's just kind of different online. And I think to those people, I would just say you'll find a rhythm with it. And also I want to tell those people, do it live. Go live on Facebook, go live in your Facebook group, go live on YouTube, teach live, because then it just completely changes the energy. If you're recording class and putting it up, for me in the beginning it was like, now lift your right arm up over your head, it was very robotic. But whenever it was live, I could come alive a lot more.
Yes.
Even though you might fuck up, but who cares? Like, you do that in a yoga class anyway. Nobody wants to see perfection. They don't care. Just keep going.
Like you said, you handstanded into your couch. And one of my clients was saying to me, he was doing a satsang teaching online, and he had a guitar on the wall behind him, and it fell off the wall and hit him on the head. Things happen.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So I think that's the mark too of just more of, I don't want to say a skillful teacher, is when you can take those things and not let it be like, oh my God, I'm the worst teacher ever. They're never going to come back to my class. Yeah. And make you feel like you're a bad teacher, because that's not the case. The difference is that we're just like, well, it happens, and you just keep going, because off of our mat, we're trying to teach our students too that you don't have to be perfect on your mat. You don't have to be perfect off your mat. And if you let go of that perfection, just like you can as the teacher, and show them, roll with the punches, they're going to be like, wow, I'm going to do more yoga because I want to be like that.
Yes. Not sweat the small stuff, but also that sort of bigger picture thinking of, if we're all in this together, if we really come from a metaphysical perspective, then who cares that I just handstanded into my couch? Because theoretically we all did. It's okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your book, what it's about, what it's called, where we can get it? Because I am #yoga nerd in extremis. I can't get enough yoga books. Tell us more about it.
Well, it's called Goddesses Fart 2.
Love.
Because they do. There's a story behind that one and behind that, but I'm not going to tell you about it because it's the first story in the book, and it's really funny. Okay. And also I tell that story at the beginning of the book because you'll know if you should read the rest of the book or not. If you can't make it through that story, or if you think that story's stupid, you might as well just stop reading it now. And that's fine. That's fine with me. It doesn't matter to me, but I don't want you to waste your time. But, again, just like with the yoga classes, the people that book resonates with, it really resonates. And I've got so many messages from people that are just like, oh my gosh, that helped me so much. And, I tell about my story with addiction and things like that. And I think that that's really inspiring for people, because even if they weren't addicts or anything, they don't feel worthy enough. Who am I to be up there and to put myself up in front of people? And again, it's not like we're saying, oh, look at me, I'm like the best, most awesome yoga teacher. you just want to help people and you
Yeah.
want to help them feel better. And that's it. Everybody can do that. If you want to help people feel better, you can do it.
Yep.
And going back to talking about privates, I used to teach those when I had a studio because they were my bread and butter. And again, that's just holding space for people. Usually people that want privates, they just want a little bit more attention. They might even want to talk more. They might just want somebody to listen, you know?
Yep. Yep.
So I really liked teaching private lessons personally.
Where can we get your book?
Oh, sorry. How did I get to private lessons from the book?
I'll
You're like,
take it.
hello,
It's still handy.
stay on track. You can get it on Amazon.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned to me just before that your next 300-hour YTT starts in September online. I'm thinking that people are, I mean, for folks like us, we're like, yeah, of course, you teach shit online, Zoom, whatever. But the rest of the world's like, oh, oh, look out, look what's possible. So folks might be looking for some additional professional development, not because if they get it, then maybe they'll finally be enough, but because they're innately feeling drawn to expand into new space. Yeah. Tell us a bit about your 300 hours. What's it?
Sure.
What's your
Well, Amy, what I really like to focus on is confidence. I'm really good at helping teachers feel confident. So, but I'm not saying that you should do this just so that you have that one more thing. I'm not saying that, but I do have a way with helping people feel confident. And how I do that too is by helping them see that they are worthy, that they do have gifts to share with the world. And my specialties are alignment, sequencing, and class planning.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say it's mostly alignment and sequencing and cueing. So whenever you're teaching online, especially, you have to get really freaking good at cueing. And I never say, okay, go into warrior 1. Okay, warrior 2. You know, I tell them exactly how to get into the pose. And I might not even say the name of the pose because students, they don't know what the pose is called. And there's so much stuff that comes with that. Oh my God, your students might be like, I don't know what that is, or how everybody else knows what they're doing, and I don't know what that is. So I help teachers learn how to teach students in a way where their students will want to come back because they feel empowered. They don't feel too fat, too old, too inflexible, whatever. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough for this. I never want one of my students to walk out of class feeling that way. And I never want one of my trainees students to walk out of class feeling that way, because yoga's for everybody. That's my main.
You know, one of the things that I think 300-hour teacher trainings are so good for is that for a lot of people, they go to a yoga class, they fall in love with yoga, they do a lot of it. The thing that seems the next obvious progression is the YTT 200 hours, not because they want to be a teacher, but they just want to learn more. But then they do the 200 hours and they think, shit, I'm actually going to teach. So they start teaching, and then they start broadening their horizons, and then they realize, oh, the 200-hour training I did was crappy. I actually don't know about this. I don't know about that. I can teach exactly like my teacher, but I don't know why I'm saying those things.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to discover my own voice. I want to hone my craft. And that's where I think the 300-hour piece is just so pivotal, because you get to choose someone more intentionally. It's not just the one that you thought was the only one. Exactly. And then you get to really, I mean, I was blessed in that I fell into an exceptional 200-hour by chance, not because I knew it.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't until 300 hours I came out of that I went, okay, now I actually feel like I've got what it takes to be a good teacher. Before I was kind of like, now I know what I'm doing. So I love that you're specializing in things like alignment and sequencing, because I think those are the two of the things that can sort of not get enough airtime in a 200-hour, particularly if it's more of a flow-based training. You just
100%
miss out on those things.
And that's why that's one of the reasons why I really focus on them. But the other reason is because I'm really good at it. So it's a win-win. I really and I love it. I love teaching it. And that's what I heard over and over and over is from students saying, oh, well, I didn't get this or that. And it's not necessarily always because sometimes the trainings, I've heard horror stories about 200-hour trainings. Wow. But it's not always the case. Maybe the teacher really loved philosophy and that was like their main thing. So they really focused on that. But the thing is, with a lot of 200-hour trainings is that you don't learn how to teach.
Yeah.
You know, that you learn and that's some of the things too with like online. And I think that that's why online gets a bad rap, is because they think that it's just all of the information. And so, yeah, it's good to deepen your practice. And some online trainings are like that. Like, here's all the information, but it's missing a key component of, okay, well, how do you teach it now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's really what sets my programs apart.
I love it. So good. And a perfect loop back to where we started, which was how timely it is right now to spend some contemplation time investigating, am I where I desire to be with my yoga business? Is there something else that has been calling or whispering to me for a while that I've been suppressing or denying? And what would it look like for me to step more into that space? What would support me to hone those skills to get there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that that can be scary because people don't want to cut themselves off at the knees, but trust me, that's not going to happen. It's actually going to broaden because, again, people are going to resonate with you way more, no matter how weird you think your thing might be. Like, I'm going to do crystals in yoga, or like moon cycles and yoga, whatever, like the weirdest thing. But there's going to be people like, oh, yes, that's what I want.
You are my person. Totally.
Exactly.
Totally. Crystal, this has been such a great conversation. Remind us again, your Facebook group and your Instagram.
Yoga Goddess Collective is the Facebook group, and my Instagram is Crystal Gray Yoga.
Fabulous, folks. Stalk her. She's fabulous. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, and you know what, Amy? I've also got a podcast.
Oh, come on. Tell us.
It's called the Yoga Goddess Academy podcast.
Okay, so go subscribe to that, everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to have you on there.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right. So thank you. It's been inspiring. I'm feeling like, I'm going to cancel everything else today and just like think about what I'd like to do next. You've inspired me for sure. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. And thanks to all of your listeners.